There you are. Or at least someone's here. Oops. Good evening, Jack. Nice to see you. Tim! Famous people coming in today. How you doing? Mats, nice to see you as well. Yeah, no problem, Mats. Yeah, absolutely. Happy to hear about, what I mentioned. I had one of the first times ever, I think, earlier today. My daughter was sick, so I was home taking care of her today. She had the fever and was vomiting and was just feeling bad. And I'm starting to feel bad as well. So I was like, oh my goodness, I don't think I can sit today. And then I spoke to my fiance and she's like, yeah, but you don't have to do it. I'm like, no, but I want to do it. I want to go sit because I like to do it. So now when I'm sitting here, I'm like, yeah, it's easy to do this. This is not difficult, even though I'm tired. Yeah, I'm feeling a bit sick. Hey, Catherine. I had a great weekend. I had a really nice weekend. We installed a playground for the kids, a big, with like climbing stuff and slides and lots of work. But I'm hoping that will be a good babysitter for the next 7 or 8 years. Hopefully, we'll see. But hopefully for a long time. And it was fun. They enjoy it. If I'm quiet today, it's because I'm just feeling sick. I had that like flu feeling, kind of something's coming. But I'm still really looking forward to sitting, and I might just talk less. We'll see how it goes. My throat is not bad, so that's okay. Has anyone had anything fun happen this weekend, or something that's come up in your meditation or thoughts you've had? It's always interesting to see. I got some really nice emails from people this weekend. People send me all kinds of questions and things that they're running through. And there was some. I'll probably make some videos about it because they were just really interesting topics. I think I already am a bit sick, Catherine. My kids are 2 and 5.5, and last year and the year before that it's just like they were sick one week and then they were healthy, and then they were sick one week and then they're healthy, and we kind of tagged along because when they go to daycare they just get all the germs and everything. Hey Beast, nice to see you. Hopefully it won't be that bad this year, I'm hoping. I remember I spent a whole lot of time in the forest playing when I was younger. Yeah, that's probably really good for the health. Like today they don't just, well, my kids actually are out quite a lot, but that really helps with the immune system, I think. You're learning Spanish and Japanese. Well, that's pretty cool. Spanish, I speak French. I always liked Spanish, like it's very similar. Japanese is such a cool language, so different. Mats is saying, I did a lot of walking meditation. Oh yeah, we spoke about that last time. And also listened to some Thich Nhat Hanh Dharma talks. I really want to visit Plum Village now, maybe next year. Walking meditation is, I don't know why it's not more popular than it is. I mean, it's so useful to have compared to sitting meditation when you sit and you close all your senses and you just focus inwards. That can be quite overwhelming and cause anxiety for some people. It's actually quite difficult sometimes to just sit and focus on something inside. But walking meditation, then first of all you have your senses more open and you're in movement, but you're focusing. It's not that you're just taking a walk and not being aware of anything. You're focusing on something quite specific, and there are many different ways of doing walking meditation, but it is really useful to first do walking meditation and then sit. I mentioned this before when I did like intensive retreats when we sat 10-15 hours per day. We would actually not sit. Well, actually some centers did just sit 10 hours per day, but most centers you would walk 1 hour, sit 1 hour, walk 1 hour, sit 1 hour, walk 1 hour, sit 1 hour, because the energy and the awareness that you get from walking is really beneficial to bring into the sitting meditation when you sit down after. And also, you said you listen to Thich Nhat Hanh Dharma talks. He has a very specific way of talking. I personally love listening to him. He has such a nice, sweet voice, and I love the atmosphere in his centers. Absolutely incredible. Plum Village is one of the most amazing meditation centers I've ever been to. Even though I don't really see it as a meditation center, I see it more as a practice center. But I love listening to him. But I think what he talks is more like poetry than Dhamma talk for me, because it's very airy fairy. It's very talking through analogies and things. Not even analogies, but what would you call that? Like, no mud, no lotus is something he always says. And there's lots of. It's very beautiful, and it's really it's like poetry. Like I said, I never focused much on what he was saying, but I really enjoyed listening to him, if that makes sense. And I highly recommend anyone who has the ability to go to Plum Village in Bordeaux in France. Incredible place. And if you're going to go, I recommend you go in the summertime. They have, let me see if I remember correctly, month of July. They have 4 weeks that they do big retreats where there's hundreds of people. Upper Hamlet, I think we had 400 or 500 people who came. And then they have Lower and Middle Hamlet, and they probably had 100, 200 each there as well. So I remember I worked in the kitchen, and sometimes we would cook for 500 or 600 people at a time. There was loads of people. And there's children and families, and they have youth retreats, and it's summertime. That's an incredible time to go and visit, and the weather is usually amazing as well. And there's more people there, so I if you're going to go to Plum Village, try doing it in the summer. Let's see. Jack is saying hiking in the mountains is good for the mind. Yeah, it's the same. Just being out in nature is just really nice for awareness. I've spoken about this at length other times, but there's a sense of, if you have this distortion towards things, then our modern society is almost built to create distortion. There's a window you go by and they want to grab your attention. There's an advertisement, it wants to grab your attention. There's a designed telephone that wants to grab your attention. There's a beautiful clothes and that wants to grab your attention. There's all these things that trigger these distortions and like creates a sense of, oh, I am here and I want or I don't want this. Whereas when we're out in nature, there's just less of that happening. Then we're more primal. We walk around and there's a stone. Okay, there could be a some kind of predator behind that animal, but behind that stone. But otherwise, there's not much being triggered there. So it's more relaxing for this distortion system to be out in nature. And also just movement in general is very soothing. So I agree with you. Hiking in the mountains is beautiful. Mats, walking or moving in general makes it way easier for me to calm my mind, in contrast to just sitting still. Good. I'm happy you saw that. And that's, I think we spoke about that. I don't remember if it was last time or the time before, but combining these two is so good, especially in your case when you're having a hard time calming the mind, to start sitting. So it's, some people see it as, oh, it's not as good as sitting because you get into deeper concentration states when you sit. Well, that's not really what it's about, unless that's what it is about for you. But then you can still have benefit from walking first, because they will help you become more centered so that you can actually sit down and use that. I see Jack is saying, where does the R come from? I read a lot of Pali and it always translated to Dhamma. Yeah. Okay, I knew this answer before because I've asked this before as well. So I wonder if it's Sanskrit that is Dharma and then Pali that is Dhamma. I can't actually remember. It's something like that, I think. There's no more profound, deep meaning behind it. It just, if I remember correctly, it's just a matter of what language we're talking about, and then they spelled it differently. Hey JVB, nice to see you as well. See, when I do sitting meditation, I can't understand what is the reason behind the why I'm doing this. It's like sleeping. Why you sit? Or what do you mean, Beast? Do you mean why you don't understand the reason why you're sitting? Or when I do sitting meditation, I can't understand what it is the reason behind this, why I'm doing this. It's like, could you expound on that? Explain a bit more what you mean? Mats, did you visit Plum Village as a layperson too, or only as a monk? I went. How many times did I go as a monk? I think 5 or 6 summers I was there to visit during the summer, and I helped out during the summer retreats. No, probably 5, because the first year I didn't go there. So yeah, very likely 5 summers I went. And then I went one time after as a layperson with my, well, now she's my fiancée. I think she was my girlfriend then. It must have been. Yeah, it probably was. I don't remember. But yeah, it was really nice to see from both sides. I mean, it's not really that big of a difference, honestly. Except that I when I was a layperson, I slept in the forest in a tent. When I was a monastic, I had a cabin that I slept in, which was very nice. Look, Om Mani Padme Hum. Nice. Mats, Sanskrit is Dharma. Dhamma, yeah. Yeah, it's something like that. Through Bradley. Hey, nice to see you again. Yes, Sanskrit is Dharma. Okay, yeah, good. Thank you. It was, like I said, I remember it was something like that. Obama from old Burma. Nice. Guys in the comment. What do you think about Buddhism in Myanmar? I practiced a lot with Mahasi. I didn't practice with him, but Mahasi Sayadaw, like his noting technique was popular in many of the centers I went to. I stayed a lot in Burmese centers, very strict centers, and really good techniques for gaining high concentration levels. And it's one of the, I think that was the second technique. I first started out with the Goenka Vipassana, and then I did Mahasi noting before I switched over to my own technique. Beast, the reason behind meditation, because I always feel calm and relaxed without meditation. So what's the reason behind meditating? Damn, you're one lucky person, Mr. Beast. Well, the reason is not to, well, again, it depends on why you meditate. For me, the reason I meditate is not to become calm and relaxed. The reason for me is to train the mind, bhavana, to sharpen the mind, to make it so that you're able to observe what happens inside of you. Because it's, even if you calm and relax, it's quite easy to be pushed and pulled around with all the things that happen. It's just that you're not reacting very strongly to it. But when you're able to observe what's happening inside, and you can see your inner states, you can see that if something happens and you react with anger or with irritation or with I want that thing, or you see something and I really want to have that thing, and all this thing pushing and pulling at you from all sides. When you meditate, you start, depending on how you do your meditation, of course, but if you do it in such a way that we're practicing here, then you learn to feel that, and you learn to see that, okay, I don't actually need to follow that. And what you're ultimately trying to do, or what we're ultimately trying to do, is to realize that your outer or inner circumstances has nothing to do with how you feel, how you're able to enjoy being here. It sounds like a crazy thing to say, but it is really true. There is no absolute, okay, I shouldn't say it has nothing to do, but it has no absolute connection with how you're feeling or how you're enjoying being here. It's just much, much easier in certain circumstances to enjoy being here than others, for obvious reasons. But for the majority of people who listen to this, and the majority of people on the planet, life is enjoyable. I mean, life is good, but there are some circumstances of life that means we need to struggle, we need to work to get money, and we need to work to get food, and some can barely get enough food. But also I think that many people I've met that have very little, that doesn't mean that they're less happy than people that have more money and who have all of those things. So we tend to say that, oh, they're so poor and they're so terrible, they have been in an accident, they're paralyzed, and they have to be so sad. Like Michael J. Fox is a good example, who got Parkinson and went from being a famous actor, well, he still is, I guess, and very active lifestyle, to having to change that incredibly when he got Parkinson. He just couldn't live life the way he did before. Is that lamp next to the plum painting new, or am I tripping? You mean that one? Yes, you are tripping. No, I'm kidding. Thank you for noticing. I actually did a little bit of rearrangement. I switched the position of the camera, and I hung a lamp there. I just thought I wanted to make it a little bit cozy. And every time I go and sit there, I feel so cozy, and I want people to who watch this to see the same thing. So I'm doing some, just fixing the lighting a little bit and just making it more easy for me, so that when I have it now already, it's quite quick for me to set everything up. But I really want to have it so that I have lights and everything, and that it actually looks good. Because if you look at some of the older ones, it's almost blurry. You can barely see me. It's nicer if you can actually see me and have a better connection. How you handle criticism? How I handle criticism? Mats doesn't need any mind sharpening. No, he's very sharp. That's true. It does look very cozy. It is very cozy. Like I said, I feel sick, and I feel like I have like this flu, when you're coming on. I have so much pain everywhere. But I feel very cozy, and I'm really enjoying myself, even though I'm tired and I'm warm, because I'm sitting here and talking to wonderful people, and we're about to meditate. So, yeah. It's getting late, I almost said. It's 20 past, so let's do the sitting. And for those of you who are new, what we do is we do a method we call the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 method, which is focusing on first 5 things we can see, 4 things we can feel and touch, 3 things that we can hear, 2 things we can smell, and 1 thing that we can taste. And we do this in such a way that it's not about just rambling these things out. We actually want to stop and observe and see what we see, and see it without, oh, I want this, or I don't want this, or like we're trying to see just textures, just shapes, just shadows, just surfaces, just see them without having an emotional reaction towards them, just seeing them as they are, just being there. And then after that, today is Monday, so today we'll have a guided meditation. You can do your own meditation if you like. And then we have a question and answer after. It used to be that we just had like 5 minutes before and then sat, but there's always a lot of nice discussion in before, so then we have that, and then we start a little bit later. So you can say it along with me. It's try to say it out loud, so you don't just mention it in your head. The whole idea is to stop and look, stop and hear, stop and smell if you can smell something. So we're trying to become aware of our senses. So I see a white logo. I see a fire extinguisher. I see Elsa. And I see a pink sweater. I see a Buddha statue. Those are 5 things that I could see. Now 4 things that I can feel. I can feel this metal tube. It's cold. I can feel the baton that I ring the bell with. I can feel this sofa. And I can feel my nose. 4 things that I can feel. And as we go along, you'll notice that we need to focus a bit more, and don't always take the first thing that comes to mind. So as we listen for 3 things that we can hear, try to hear if you can hear more than just the most obvious thing. And maybe there's a sound, but there's a sound in the sound, or something happening in that sound that you can observe. But really try to use your senses and be fully in your hearing. So I can hear wind blowing on the windows. I can hear a high-pitched 2-stroke engine. I can hear the pulsing of my pulse. There's 3 things that we could hear. Now we take 2 things that we can smell. And as I said, we're getting gradually more fine. So we try to look for 2 things that we can smell. I can smell wool, wet wool. I can smell that someone has bad breath. Finally, we take 1 thing that we can taste. I can taste rooibos. So for this meditation, we'll be doing a breathing exercise. And the way we do it is a little bit different than some of you may have done before. We're not trying to do breath work where we're trying to control the breath as it's happening. Instead, we're trying to get out of the way of the breath. We're just letting breath happen by itself. So it's almost as if though you're standing to the side and you can observe breath happening inside of you. So as we start, just move your awareness to your breath and observe how it comes in and goes out. And you're breathing in and breathing out. We're also not focusing on a specific point. As I said before, the reason for meditating is that we're trying to become aware of our sometimes unconscious reaction to the world around you as we walk around and we're being pushed and pulled by this sense of needing to go somewhere or needing to stay away from somewhere or needing to have, needing to not have certain things. So the awareness of the breath that we're trying to cultivate is a wide awareness. We're trying to be aware of breath happening rather than feeling the sensations of cold air streaming through the front of your nostrils. You can feel it in the nasal cavity just as breath goes in and it hits the back of the nose and goes down, and you can feel all of this. You can feel the tension of the torso area as it expands and contracts, and look for small details and then go to the tip of the nose. But that's not what we're trying to do here. We're trying to raise our awareness so that we're throughout the day aware of what's happening inside of us. So look for a wide sense of awareness of breath happening inside of you. Something that you'll also notice when you start sitting down is that the mind tends to have a tendency to come in and want to pull you into something very nice that happened earlier that you want to remember. And you feel all these nice feelings thinking about that nice thing that happened. But that's not what we're trying to do here. We're actually trying to observe the breath right now. And then the mind says, okay, I won't go into the past, but instead I'm going to think about the future. I'm going to think about the future when I have become enlightened. And I'm going to think about all the amazing things I'm going to do, how I'm going to save the world, achieve miracles, and I'll walk on the thin air, and I'll do all these incredible things. But that's also not what we're trying to do here. Neither actually doing those things or needing to think about those things. Instead, ask yourself, for the next 20 minutes, would it be okay if you just let go of everything that's happened to you since you were born, all the little things that makes you you? For the next 20 minutes, just let go of that. Ask if it's okay to just give it a break, and also not needing to think about all the things you need to do tomorrow or the day after tomorrow, or the problems you have, all the difficulties in your life. They will still be there. We're not trying to deny that they exist. The only thing we're trying to do is just have a break and observe the breath. It's so simple and yet so difficult to do. So give yourself permission to just observe the breath for these next 20 minutes and nothing else. And when you fail, don't get upset, but just come back to observing the breath. So to make this a little bit easier, we will use a technique where we count our breaths from 1 to 8 and then down again from 8 to 1. And the way that we do this is that I just said what we do. We count our breath from 1 to 8 and then down from 8 to 1. But when you lose your breath in the middle and you forget where you are, you just start over. Or all of a sudden you're at 15, 16. That's okay. You can just start over again. It's not about how many reps you get in. It's just about observing the breath. So I'll do it once together with you, and then you can continue doing it by yourself. So breathing in and breathing out. 1. Breathing in and breathing out. 2. Breathing in and breathing out. 3. Breathing in and breathing out. 4. Breathing in and breathing out. 5. Breathing in and breathing out. 6. Breathing in and breathing out. 7. Breathing in and breathing out. 8. Breathing in, breathing out. 7. Breathing in, breathing out. 6. Breathing in, breathing out. 5. Breathing in, breathing out. 4. Breathing in, breathing out. 3. Breathing in, breathing out. Breathing in, breathing out. 1. Now continue counting your breath by yourself from 1 to 8 and then down again from 8 to 1. As you breathe in, breathe out. 1. Breathing in, breathing out. 'It might feel discouraging when you're meditating and you're finding it difficult to remember what breath count you were on. Not necessarily that you're drifting off in thoughts, but that it becomes difficult to count from 1 to 8 and down from 8 to 1. Because as you're going from 8 and then down to 7, you forgot what number you were on. This might actually be a sign that you're letting go of distortion. There is something interesting about our memory that few people ever think about. And to make it easier to understand, I'll just share how it came to me, which was when I was sitting at a center, and I remember I had a timer with me on my phone. And I had a phone and I put it under my bum, just like I have now. And I put the timer on. And then when I was going to leave, it rang and I kept on meditating and I put it under my bum again. And then I could feel this tension towards the bum, thinking, oh, don't forget the telephone and the keys to the kuti, they're lying there. And I could quite clearly feel the distortion towards the thing that I was not supposed to forget. When I started noticing this, I realized that our mostly short-term memory works by making us feel bit uncomfortable, just a tiny bit uncomfortable, there's a sense of tension that makes that feel important, that makes it feel like you need to remember it. It seems like there's another way of remembering things as well, which might be more closely related to long-term memory or the sense of simply knowing. But it is vastly different to distorting towards the thing you remember. So if you sit and you forget your name, you forget where you are, which is a very common occurrence, you forget what you're doing, you sometimes even forget to breathe, and you get, oh my goodness, I forgot to breathe. Those are all natural things that tend to happen when we observe the breath and just let go of all the things we need to do. And of course, it's no failure that you lost count of your breath. The only thing that you need to do is to keep coming back to your breath over and over and over again. And the more times you do this, the easier it will be to stay with the breath. So don't see it as a failure. You're simply doing what you're supposed to do, noticing that you drifted off, and then you come back. And then you come back, and then you come back, and then you come back, and then you can go back. And I could keep saying that 100 times in a single sitting. So just keep on observing your breath as you're breathing in, breathing out. 1. Breathing in, breathing out. if you want to keep on sitting, or you're welcome to drink a cup of tea. Just bring any topics up that you'd like to discuss. If you have any. Thank you. I really enjoyed it as well. Thank you, Jack. It's nice. Sometimes, well, actually, there was a question. Mats is saying, walking meditation really did help a ton. It was a very good meditation for me today. Also, I kept noticing my eyes moving when I lost focus on the breath. Oh, interesting. Were they flicking, or were they just moving around? Happy you liked the beast. Eyes can move. Yeah, there's different ways they can move. There's actually some techniques they use the eye. You do eye movements. Some techniques that try to, you blink in a specific frequency, kind of, or in a way to make you go into these concentration states. I did play around with it a little bit. I never found it necessary, but the eyes are, I think, one of the best ways to know what state you're in is the eyes, because you can really see that someone's really far gone and not really here. They're kind of like they're talking to you and they're not really there. They're just somewhere else. And you can also see someone who's like high on drugs. You can see it in their eyes. When someone's really angry, they can see it. When someone really loves you, you can see it. But also, when you look at your vision after you meditated now, you'll notice very likely that normally your vision is like this. It's very, I'm here and I'm looking there. But when you go into concentration states, the vision seems to widen, and all of a sudden the focus point is not this narrow thing. It just becomes wider and wider, and you're aware of fields around you. And I remember when I did walking meditation, specifically at one center up in Ella, in Sri Lanka, I walked by and I kept seeing things moving on the side. Like, wow, is someone moving here? And I kept looking, but it's because I was watching. My field of view was this wide, not just field of view, but my focus was this wide. I was aware of this whole field, and that really changes with when you get less distortion, less self. That kind of disappears, and eventually you don't feel like there's any distance. So the eyes really do tightly tie into meditation. I'm going to take Matt's continuation. It felt like I was looking into the distance, and when I refocused, it felt much closer, like I was focused right on the back of my... Yeah, that's kind of what I'm talking about. The distance, perspective distance disappears. One of the things that happen when you go through some of these stages in the jhanas, and there's all these things that happen, is that you lose your perspective. You lose feeling, I am really here and you're really there. This like vision is coming and going, that way disappears. And it's more that you are at the back of your eyelids. That's when I talk about when you feel really good and you feel in a good mood. You are in your senses, and that's how you're viewing things, hearing things, and touching and feeling. That's actually what we're trying to do here. I see Jethro was saying, any tips for dealing with noise during meditation? I live in a shared house in a city, and there are times when neighbors or people in the streets are loud or shout, road rage sometimes even. Yes. I was at a center in... Let me see, what was that called? I think it was Penang in Malaysia. Yeah, I think it was Penang in Malaysia. There was a Singaporean. It was a layperson. He was a meditation teacher, and I had a big group of people who came to him. And he was running this center, and there were monks staying there also. But he was very popular, and people kept coming back. And he would have his meditations, and he'd walk around with like a water sprayer, like when you spray your plants, but he'd put it on a mist. So he'd walk around and he'd spray people in the face and spray around them. Spray everywhere, and then he'd go around and just make like weird sounds right behind people's ears. He'd put on weird music like radio, and I'm like, what is happening here? The first time I went to his sessions. But his idea was that, and I really agree with this, is that you don't need calmness to meditate. Again, we're not trying to become calm and relaxed. That's just, if anything, calm and relax is a side effect. I mean, it is nice to have that, but that's not really what we're trying to do. So you don't need to have a specific environment to go inside and focus. And you can become calm and relaxed despite what's happening around you. Again, breaking this idea that there's an absolute connection between what happens on the outside or inside to your inner state. So, yes, when it comes to sounds around you, they're not the problem. You are the problem. The idea that you have that it needs to be a specific way for you to relax is the problem. Now, as I say that, I also admit that it is much easier to sit calm and be relaxed and be aware when there's not too many distractions. That's one of the reasons we close our eyes. That's one of the reasons we sit in an environment where there's not much happening, because we want to minimize the stimuli. So yes, it is more difficult with sounds around you, but ultimately it doesn't really make a difference. If anything, it will make your meditation stronger. It will make your ability to focus better, because you need to focus on this despite this. So what you would do is that when you hear that sound, the neighbors banging on something, instead of focusing on the sound directly, right? You want to hear the sound, of course, but look at that distortion that comes between you and this, oh, I don't like this sound. And you start having a distance towards it, you push. That's the thing that we're trying to let go of. That's the whole reason we're meditating. Even beyond becoming aware and being in our senses, it's letting go of this distortion, this resistance, or pulling towards the world around you. So it's just a meditation exercise. I mean, yeah, it could be a great advantage to have that, actually. Might not feel like it, but it can actually be. I used to even go and sit and meditate in public spaces like train stations, and I'd sit in the middle of like a field somewhere, not a field, what do you call it, a park. Just listen to people around me and see what I was distorting towards it. Not focusing on blaming them where they should do this, should do that, but it's in focusing on my distortion. And if you live in such a place, very likely you have that outside of your sitting, meaning that it's difficult that people disturb you and wake you up at night or make noises the whole time. That's one of the reasons I don't like living inside a city, because I don't like that. So I prefer to stay away from it. But when we have it, then we practice with it, and you need to learn to let go of it. And because if you move out into the country, when I moved here, there was a neighbor who played loud music. It's like, oh, God damn it. It's like you never get away from this stuff. There's always going to be something. So it's just a good thing to exercise with. Let's see, JVB. Last time you mentioned that we can choose whether we want as the source of our... Let me just reread that. Last time you mentioned that we can choose whatever we want as the source of our emotional issues. Like in psychotherapy, is choosing the source of our emotional issues good or bad? Okay, so what I said was that we need an excuse, and some people really get triggered by this and don't like hearing, but we need a reason good enough for us to let go of our suffering. So, say for instance, I have... I can't stand spiders. I really can't stand spiders. I'm so fearful of spiders. They're like, I just cramp up and I have anxiety. And then I can't sleep in my bed because I saw a spider in the kitchen, so now I can't sleep in the bed. Imagine someone says something like that, and then they go to therapy and they say like, okay, you know what? We look at this, and then they do age regression. They go into hypnosis and they find a memory when they were a child, and their father took a spider up, and you were a little bit afraid of it, and then he ate it. Something my father actually did. It's just scary. I still remember this. There's a bit of trauma there. And then you say, oh, I get it. The reason I'm so afraid of spiders is because of what my father did. That's where I feel all this crazy strong emotion and reaction, and it feels so terrible that he did that, and that really, like, you can't do that. It just messed with my relationship towards spiders. And then the coach, the therapist says, well, that's the reason why you're doing this. And it's okay. You can let go of this. You don't need to carry this with you. For some people, nothing's going to happen. But for some people, they go, oh, I get it. The reason I suffer is because my father did that. And that's a silly thing to do. I should let go of that. I can stop doing that. So then you let go of that. And that can happen through hypnosis. It can happen through psychotherapy, where you go back and look at your past life. Not your past lives, but like your youth or something that happened before. It can happen through any kind of therapy that looks at these things coming up. EFT, like tapping, what they do is they bring up memories and they tap and they distort this thing, like, and they just scramble it so much. They're like, oh, okay, I don't need to feel bad, because when you start thinking about it, they actually start distorting it. So most therapies, in my opinion, is that they just give you an excuse good enough for you to stop doing whatever it is that you're hurting yourself with. And that's why different therapies work for different people, why different therapists work for different people, because some people you would not accept if your mother told you that, oh, that's what happened, and you don't need to feel bad about that. But if a therapist or someone you looked up to, or someone you cared about, or someone you've listened to, or someone you think has done whatever it is, that's why. So it's not that we choose the source of our emotional issues. It's that we, well, in a way, I guess it is, but it's that we simply accept a reason for it, and it doesn't really matter what it is. And I mean, it doesn't matter. If you let go of it, you've let go of it. Why make it a bad thing? I think it's a good thing. And that's why I believe all therapies, pretty much anything, can help. Even how you would not believe some of the forms of therapy or spiritual healing that I have heard. But it does work for some people if they're susceptible to it. So that's my explanation as to why it works. Mats is saying, also felt less narrow and more diffused. Yes, that's we're talking about the vision Mats was talking about. So that's exactly what it is. Like, your vision becomes, when you go through the jhanas, the concentration states. I can't remember if it's the first 4 that this is really clear. It's a long time ago that I was playing around with this. But basically, when you go through the jhanas, you feel your vision going like this. There's even, I think they're called kasinas, discs that you can focus on to widen your awareness, try to get into these states. When you start thinking about this and noticing it, you'll see it all the time. And for me, it just pops. Well, now it's actually wide most of the time. It's just stuck in that state. But it gets even wider sometimes. And it used to be something that I played with when I was out walking. I'd see, can I be aware of, like, everywhere around me, and really be aware of it. Jack is going to bed. Good night, Jack. Nice to have you here tonight. Don Villesuira, hope I pronounced that correctly. I'm thinking of becoming a monk. I feel enough of worldly stuff, not enjoying my career or anything anymore, except for spiritual stuff like this. Any advice? Yes, this is something we've discussed quite a few times. Actually, I don't know if you're the one who mailed me, but someone mailed me a question about this the other day. Yeah. So basically, if you want to become a Buddhist, not a Buddhist monk necessarily, but a monk, you need to find a center that you feel you relate to. But as an example, I went to centers in Europe and in Asia. When I went to the centers in Europe, mostly it was Thich Nhat Hanh centers, which were very, very open. They focus more on love and kindness and your inner child and emotions, and being open to other people and interactions with other people, and living a non-harmful life, being kind to other people, seeing joy in the world. That was their focus, but they did very little meditation. And then if I would go to a more intensive center, like actual meditation center in Asia, some of them were extremely rigorous and very strict. And the attitude was quite strict in some. Some I really enjoyed being there, but I would not want to live there because I didn't like that hardness. But for, like, I usually went 3 months at a time. And then I moved to different centers for 3 months, perfectly fine. So look for a center that you feel you resonate with. And also I'd really go there and visit first if you have the ability to do that, just to get a feel for what it's like. And also know that what you feel when you're there as a lay person and the calmness, that's not what it's like when you actually become a monastic at that place, because then you become part of the establishment, and that's a very different thing than coming and visiting as a guest. Then reality hits kind of for many people. There's also, you could become if you're talking about Buddhism, what's called a temple monk, who basically don't meditate at all. They just do rituals and ceremonies and study the Buddhist textures. So that's something completely different. So really look into why you want to become, I'm thinking of this as becoming a Buddhist monk, but why you want to become a monastic. Are you running away from something? Is it something you're not facing? Is it that you are just not finding satisfaction? What kind of satisfaction do you believe you're going to get from becoming a monastic? Or is this just some thing that you don't know how to handle inside of you that you believe you're going to be able to handle if you go there? So maybe then it's therapy you're actually after. Or my point is that look into why you're doing this. And then, I mean, if you don't have any obligations, like I didn't when I left. Well, I did have a girlfriend and I did have a job and stuff, but nothing serious like that. So I could just leave. Then I left and I stayed away for 8 years, 6 years as a monk. We're going to finish soon because it's getting late. Let's see. Beast is saying, becoming a monk, trust me, you shouldn't become a monk outside things. Doesn't matter. You should learn to tackle things while working in this world. You can't run from this world. There's a point to what Beast is saying. When people run away, but I wouldn't say you shouldn't. I've met people who are so broken and so in such a bad place that, yes, it's a really good thing for them to become monastics and just retreat from the world. Sometimes we need that. And I saw people who didn't actually become monastics, but who lived long term at centers, handling chores or taking care of the monks or doing taking care of the gardens or doing. There's in Plum Village they have something they call the Happy Farm, where lay people can come and do organic gardening. And you can stay there for a year or 2 or 3 or 5 or 7 and just do that. So there's nothing wrong with that. It's so easy to say, oh, you shouldn't do this, shouldn't do that. Every situation is specific. And ultimately, I can't sit and tell you what is right or wrong. You have to try that and know for yourself what you believe is going to be the best. I actually will very likely be making a video about this sometime quite soon, because I've had more and more people ask me about this. And it's something I have a lot of thoughts about it, and I need to gather my thoughts a little bit in structure, how I want to put that forward. Fourth, Jethro, thank you for your answer. You're welcome. Mats, have a good night, everyone. Thanks for the session, Martin. Thank you too, Mats. JVB, if it works, it works, I guess. Yes, that's actually more profound than you might realize. Sweet. It works, and it's time for me to go to bed. Thank you, everyone, for a wonderful session as always. I really appreciate everyone coming here, and it brings me joy to sit with you. I wish you a pleasant week, and I told you last time, and I'll say it again, for this week that's coming, look inside as much as you can throughout the week and ask yourself, how am I doing right now? And if you're not feeling you're enjoying yourself, if you're not feeling you're in a good mood, ask yourself, is this a good way to spend my time? And I'm not talking about what you're doing outside. I'm talking about how you're choosing to be in this situation. And then, of course, you can change the situation if it's not good. So look at that, and I'll see everyone on Thursday again. Thank you.